Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're heading over to India to unpack some of the biggest stories making headlines on February 20th, 2025.
It's a fascinating mix, as always: politics, global trade, and even a little bit of asteroid drama thrown in for good measure.
Oh, definitely. Like, you never know what you're going to find when we do these deep dives. For instance, did you know that former President Trump has some pretty strong opinions about Tesla's plans for a factory in India?
Yes, this has definitely been making the rounds in the news. It seems he's taken issue with Elon Musk setting up shop there, using it as an opportunity to criticize India's import tariffs on cars, which he sees as unfair to U.S. companies.
He even mentioned something called reciprocal tariffs. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what that means.
Well, in essence, it's the idea of responding to tariffs imposed on U.S. goods by placing similar tariffs on goods from that country. So, if India places a tariff on American cars, Trump would argue that the U.S. should respond by placing a tariff on Indian goods. It's essentially a tit-for-tat approach.
But wouldn't that just hurt everyone involved? It seems like a recipe for a trade war.
It's a complex issue, and there are strong arguments on both sides. Proponents of free trade argue that tariffs ultimately harm consumers by driving up prices, while those who advocate for protectionist policies, like Trump in this case, believe that tariffs are necessary to safeguard domestic industries and jobs.
So it's a balancing act, trying to find that sweet spot between protecting your own interests and participating in a globalized economy.
Precisely. And how India navigates this situation with Tesla will be interesting to watch. They've already hinted at the possibility of lowering tariffs if Tesla commits to a substantial amount of local manufacturing.
That makes sense. Wanting to attract foreign investment without undermining their own industries. It sounds like a classic case of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Exactly. It's all about finding common ground and mutually beneficial arrangements. But moving on from the intricacies of global economics, there's another intriguing partnership developing that's been catching my eye. This time it's between India and Armenia, and it seems their defense and diplomatic ties are getting a major boost.
Oh, you mean the deal where India is supplying Armenia with weapon systems like the Akash-1S air defense system and the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher? I was reading about that, and it seems like a pretty big deal.
It's a significant development for sure, and I think it's worth unpacking the motivations behind it. Armenia, facing ongoing security threats in its region, is looking to diversify its alliances. Traditionally, they've relied heavily on Russia for military support, but this move suggests a desire to expand their options.
So it's partly about hedging their bets, not putting all their eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Exactly. And from India's perspective, this partnership represents an opportunity to extend its influence into the South Caucasus, a region that's becoming increasingly important geopolitically.
It's all about strategic positioning, isn't it? Securing allies and footholds in key regions.
Precisely. It's a bit like a game of chess, each move carefully calculated to advance your position on the global board. And this partnership goes beyond just defense cooperation, too. They're also collaborating on the International North-South Transport Corridor, a massive infrastructure project that aims to connect India with Europe via Iran and Armenia.
Wow, that sounds ambitious. I imagine that would have significant economic benefits for both countries.
Absolutely. It has the potential to transform trade and transportation across Eurasia, opening up new markets and streamlining existing routes. And it's not just about economic benefits either. This collaboration fosters closer diplomatic ties and creates opportunities for collaboration in other sectors, such as technology and energy.
So it's a multifaceted partnership with potential benefits that extend far beyond just defense and economics. It really speaks to the growing importance of regional alliances in today's world.
Indeed. And it's not the only partnership India is forging. They're also making moves in a completely different arena: the world of pop music. Apparently, there's a nationwide talent hunt underway to create India's first globally recognized boy band.
Oh yeah, I saw something about that. They're really going all in on this, bringing in big names like Grammy-nominated songwriters Savan Kotecha and partnering with major labels like Universal Music India and Republic Records. It seems like they're hoping to replicate the success of groups like One Direction and capture that global teen pop market.
It's an interesting strategy, and I think it reflects a growing awareness within India of the power of soft power, using cultural exports like music and film to enhance their global image and influence.
And with India's massive and youthful population, it's no surprise they're looking to tap into that teen pop market.
Exactly. There's a huge potential audience there. And if they can create a group that resonates not just domestically but also internationally, it could be a major win for India's cultural diplomacy efforts. But enough about boy bands for now. Let's turn our attention to something that truly unites Indians: cricket. Cricket. The sport that brings a nation to a standstill. It's almost time for the ICC Champions Trophy 2025, and the opening match is a clash of the titans: India versus Bangladesh at the Dubai International Stadium. the hype is real.
Oh, the excitement is palpable. And of course, the pressure is on, especially for India. They're the tournament favorites, but they're also carrying the weight of their loss in the 2023 World Cup final. They'll be looking for redemption.
It's going to be an electrifying match. That's for sure. India has a formidable lineup with players like Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and Hardik Pandya. But Bangladesh is no pushover either. They've been steadily improving and have the potential to cause an upset.
Absolutely. And with a global audience tuning in, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Well, from global trade to pop music to the thrill of cricket, it seems India is making its presence felt across a wide range of domains.
Absolutely. And I think what ties all these stories together is this sense of a nation that's confident, ambitious, and determined to make its mark on the world stage. It's a fascinating glimpse into a nation that's simultaneously ancient and modern, balancing its rich traditions with its aspirations for a technologically advanced future. But it's not all sunshine and roses, is it? We can't forget about those tariffs we discussed earlier, and it seems they're already having an impact on Indian pharmaceutical stocks.
Ah, yes, the ripple effects of global trade tensions. Indian drug makers, which rely heavily on the U.S. market for revenue, saw their stock prices dip after Trump's comments. It's a stark reminder that seemingly distant political events can have very real and immediate consequences for specific industries.
And we're talking about some major players here. Companies like Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, Aurobindo Pharma. These are household names in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. And their performance is a bellwether for the overall health of the sector.
And this brings us back to that core tension we discussed earlier, how to balance the benefits of free trade with the need to protect domestic industries. It's an ongoing challenge, not just for India and the U.S., but for all nations navigating the complexities of the globalized economy.
Because in the end, it's not just about abstract economic indicators. It's about people's livelihoods, access to essential medicines, and the overall well-being of society. These trade decisions have real-world consequences.
Exactly. And they highlight the interconnectedness of our world. But despite these challenges, India is also making bold moves in other areas, particularly in space exploration. They've just launched a new $58 million fund specifically aimed at supporting early-stage space technologies.
Really, that's a significant investment. What are they hoping to achieve with this fund?
It's all part of a larger strategy to establish India as a major player in the global space industry. The goal is to reduce their reliance on foreign technology, foster innovation within their own borders, and ultimately capture a greater share of the global space market. It's about economic growth, technological advancement, and maybe even a bit of national pride.
So it's a win-win on multiple levels, and it seems Prime Minister Modi is a big proponent of this vision.
He is indeed. He's been a vocal advocate for India's space program and has made it clear that space exploration is a top priority for his government. They've even established IN Space, the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, to streamline the process of private sector participation in the space industry. So it's a collaborative effort between the government and the private sector working together to propel India to the forefront of space exploration.
It's an exciting time for India's space program, that's for sure. But speaking of space, there's another story that's been making headlines recently, and this one has a slightly more ominous tone. You remember that asteroid 2024 YR4, the one discovered last year that was predicted to pass relatively close to Earth? Well, it's back in the news, and this time it's causing a bit of a stir.
Ah, yes, the asteroid that just won't go away. Well, new calculations by both NASA and the European Space Agency suggest there's now a small but real chance that it could impact Earth in 2032. Not exactly the news anyone wants to hear.
A potential asteroid impact. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It certainly has that element of drama, doesn't it? But the threat is real, however small the probability. It's a stark reminder of our planet's vulnerability within the vastness of space.
So just how serious is this threat? What are we talking about if this asteroid were to actually hit Earth?
Well, according to NASA, an impact could be as powerful as 8 megatons of TNT, which is roughly 500 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
Wow, that's terrifying. And I remember reading that some major cities are in the potential impact zone. We're talking about places like Mumbai, Kolkata, Dhaka, Bogota, Lagos. These are densely populated areas. An impact of that magnitude would be devastating.
Absolutely. The potential for loss of life and widespread destruction is enormous, but it's important to remember that the probability of an impact is still relatively low, estimated to be around 1 in 2,500. Those are just estimates, of course, and the trajectory of an asteroid can change over time.
So it's not time to panic just yet. But are there any plans in place to, monitor this asteroid or even potentially deflect it if necessary?
Both NASA and the ESA are keeping a very close eye on 2024 YR4, and they're also developing plans for potential deflection missions, We've already seen the success of NASA's DART mission, which successfully altered the trajectory of an asteroid last year, so there's reason to be optimistic. It seems we're not entirely powerless against these celestial threats.
That's reassuring to hear. But even if this particular asteroid doesn't pose an immediate danger, it certainly raises some important questions about planetary defense and our preparedness for such events.
Absolutely. It's a wake-up call urging us to invest in research, develop new technologies, and strengthen international collaborations to address these potential threats, because who knows what else might be lurking out there in the vastness of space.
From the thrill of a cricket match to the potential threat of an asteroid impact, this deep dive has certainly taken us on a roller coaster of emotions. But before we wrap up this part of our journey, there's one more story that I think deserves our attention. It involves the world of entertainment and a controversy that's sparking a heated debate about free speech in India.
You're talking about the India's Got Latent incident, right? A seemingly innocuous comment about parents and sex made on the show has snowballed into a major controversy, leading to legal action and raising questions about what's considered acceptable in the realm of online content.
It seems like a remark made by Samay Raina and Ranveer Labadia during their show sparked outrage among certain groups, leading to accusations of obscenity and offensive content. It's quickly escalated, hasn't it?
It certainly has. Musician Vishal Dadlani has even weighed in, publicly criticizing the outrage and expressing concerns about government overreach in regulating online content. He argues that this incident could set a dangerous precedent for censorship, stifling creative expression, and limiting free speech.
So it's become a much broader debate about freedom of expression, societal norms, and the role of government in policing online content. It seems India, like many countries around the world, is grappling with these complex issues in the digital age.
It's a delicate balancing act, finding that sweet spot between protecting societal values and upholding individual freedoms. There are no easy answers, and the stakes are high. How this debate unfolds in India will likely have implications for online content creators and consumers around the world.
It's a situation that deserves our attention and careful consideration. As this story continues to unfold, it'll be interesting to see where the line is drawn between creative freedom and social responsibility, and how India navigates this ever-evolving landscape of online expression.
It's a topic that's sure to generate further discussion and debate, but for now I think it's time to take a break. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into India, and there's much more to explore. Join us in part 2 as we delve deeper into these stories and analyze their implications for the future. Welcome back to our deep dive into the headlines shaping India today. Before we get into some of the other stories, I wanted to circle back to one we touched on earlier: Uber's strategic shift in the Indian ride-hailing market. It's a move that's generating quite a bit of buzz in the business world.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a bold move. Moving away from their traditional commission-based model to a daily fee structure for auto rickshaw drivers is a pretty big gamble.
It is, and I think it speaks to the unique challenges and opportunities that companies face when operating in a market as dynamic and diverse as India's. You see, unlike in many Western countries where ride-hailing services primarily compete with taxis, in India, they're up against a deeply entrenched and highly competitive auto rickshaw industry.
Right. Auto rickshaws are practically synonymous with Indian street life. They're affordable, maneuverable, and a vital part of the transportation fabric for millions of people.
Exactly, and Uber recognized that to truly penetrate the Indian market, they needed to find a way to integrate with rather than disrupt this existing system.
So by offering a daily fee structure, they're essentially giving auto rickshaw drivers a new way of doing business, one that could potentially be more appealing than the traditional haggling and commission-based system.
Precisely. It provides drivers with more predictability and stability. They know exactly what they'll be paying Uber each day, regardless of the number of rides they give, which allows them to set their own rates and potentially earn more, especially during peak hours or for longer distances.
So it's a win-win situation, right? Both drivers and passengers benefit.
Well, in theory, yes, but there are also concerns, particularly regarding the potential for exploitation of drivers. Anytime you have a large corporation like Uber entering a market with existing labor structures, there's always a risk, especially in a country like India, where labor regulations can be complex and enforcement can be uneven.
Right. It's important to keep an eye on those aspects and ensure fair labor practices are maintained. But overall, I think it's an interesting experiment, and it'll be fascinating to see if this model proves successful and whether it could be replicated in other markets where Uber faces similar challenges.
Agreed. It's a case study worth watching. But let's move on for now. There's another story I wanted to discuss, one that touches on a very sensitive topic. The controversy surrounding India's Got Latent has really sparked a nationwide debate about the limits of free speech, particularly in the online realm.
It's definitely a complex issue. On one hand, you have the right to creative expression and the freedom to voice your opinions, even if they're controversial or offensive to some. On the other hand, there's a need to protect societal values, prevent the spread of harmful content, and maintain social harmony. Finding that balance is never easy.
And this case really highlights those tensions, doesn't it? A seemingly innocuous comment made on a relatively small online show has snowballed into a major controversy, leading to legal action and even international attention. It's a reminder of the power of the internet to amplify voices and shape public discourse, for better or worse.
I know, it's kind of crazy how quickly things can escalate online. What started as a comment on a comedy show has become a national conversation about censorship, freedom of expression, and the role of government in regulating online content. It's a debate that's playing out not just in India, but in many countries around the world.
It really is. And it's a debate with no easy answers. How do we protect freedom of expression while also safeguarding against hate speech, misinformation, and harmful content? Where do we draw the line? These are questions that societies around the world are grappling with as the digital landscape continues to evolve.
Yeah, and the outcome of this debate in India could have ripple effects across the globe. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But shifting gears a bit, I wanted to touch on another story that we discussed earlier, the strengthening ties between India and Armenia, particularly in the realm of defense cooperation.
Yes, it's a significant development that signals a shift in India's foreign policy. They're becoming more assertive on the world stage, forging strategic alliances and securing their interests in key regions.
It's a departure from their traditional non-aligned stance, isn't it? They're not shying away from taking a more active role in global affairs. And this partnership with Armenia in particular demonstrates their willingness to project their influence beyond their immediate neighborhood.
Absolutely. The South Caucasus, with its energy resources, transportation routes, and proximity to major powers, is a strategically significant area. And India is not simply observing events in the region. They're actively shaping them through this partnership.
It's all part of a larger trend we're seeing with India's rise as a global power. They're flexing their diplomatic and military muscles and making it clear that they intend to play a major role in shaping the 21st century.
Precisely. And it's not just about military might either. They're also leveraging their economic power and cultural influence to expand their global footprint. Think about that boy band initiative we discussed. It's a prime example of soft power in action, using cultural exports to enhance their global image and appeal.
It's a smart strategy. And it seems to be working. India is increasingly seen as a rising star on the global stage, a nation with a vibrant democracy, a booming economy, and a young, ambitious population.
But as with any rising power, there are challenges to navigate. The Trump-Tesla saga is a prime example of how India's economic ambitions can sometimes clash with the interests of other countries. And internally, they're still grappling with issues like poverty, inequality, and social tensions.
It's a reminder that despite their impressive progress, India still faces significant hurdles on its path to becoming a truly global superpower.
Absolutely. But I think what's important is that they seem to be approaching these challenges with a sense of determination and optimism. They're not shying away from difficult conversations or complex problems, and they're willing to experiment and adapt, as we saw with Uber's strategic shift in the ride-hailing market.
It's that spirit of innovation and adaptability that makes India such a fascinating country to watch. They're constantly evolving, pushing boundaries, and defying expectations. Who knows what they'll achieve in the years to come? But one thing's for sure, the world will be watching.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from trade wars and asteroid threats to boy band dreams and political controversies. It seems like India is making headlines everywhere these days.
It's true, and what strikes me is how these seemingly disparate stories all offer a glimpse into a nation that's really finding its place on the world stage.
Right. It's like we're seeing a nation in transition, balancing its ancient traditions with its aspirations for a modern, technologically advanced future. It's fascinating to watch.
Definitely. And if there's one thing that stands out to me, it's India's growing assertiveness in global affairs.
You see that everywhere, don't you? Their strengthening ties with Armenia, their ambitious space program, and even their approach to global trade negotiations. They're not afraid to stand up for their interests. Exactly. They're not content to sit on the sidelines anymore. They want to be active shapers of the global landscape. And it's not just about military or economic might either. They're also leveraging their cultural influence, like with that boy band initiative we discussed earlier.
It's a smart strategy, isn't it? Using soft power to enhance their global image and appeal.
Definitely. And it seems to be working. India is increasingly seen as a rising star on the global stage, a nation with a vibrant democracy, a booming economy, and a young, ambitious population.
But as with any journey, there are bound to be challenges along the way. We've seen how India's economic ambitions can sometimes clash with the interests of other countries, like with the Trump-Tesla situation. And internally, they're still grappling with issues like social inequality, religious tensions, and finding that balance between tradition and modernity.
It's a reminder that progress isn't always linear, right? There will be bumps in the road. But I think what's important is that India seems willing to confront these challenges head on. They're not shying away from difficult conversations or complex problems.
Right, and that willingness to engage, to debate, to experiment, that's what gives me hope for India's future. They're not afraid to try new things, to push the boundaries, to think outside the box.
Exactly. And it's that dynamism, that spirit of innovation and adaptability that I find so inspiring. India is a nation that's constantly evolving, constantly pushing boundaries, constantly surprising the world.
It's been an incredible journey exploring these stories and getting a glimpse into the heart of a nation that's complex, vibrant, and full of potential. What a deep dive. So, to our listeners, thanks for joining us. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deeper. Until next time.